afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, May 31st, 2022 at 5:01 p.m. and I'll call to order the Freetown Board of Selectmen meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on our town YouTube page. We will be going into executive session and then returning back into open session. We'll be going into executive session for the following reason. Executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7 to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant in aid requirements. Open meeting law to review consideration of release of the executive session meeting minutes for the following executive session meeting dates. The dates are listed in attachment A, which is available in the packet, which is a bunch of them, right? So with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion made.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes.
Selectman Matthews.
Yes. We are now back in an open session from executive session. I will kick it over to Board of Health, Chairman of the Board of Health, Jared, for agenda item 2.
All right, so, agenda item number 2, discussion and vote on whether to fine and suspend Prime Express tobacco license. I have Kevin here with me, Board of Health agent, and, we can talk a little bit about this, Kevin, if you wanna.
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, folks. So, in the Commonwealth, we have very strong tobacco regulations, no flavored tobacco, no selling to minors, those types of things. We currently enlist the services. It is a free service. It's a regional service done by the City of New Bedford's Tobacco Compliance Department, if you will. They will go out and do undercover stings relative to checking just that. They'll send a minor in, see about getting cigarettes bought. A couple of weeks ago, we had that happen in our community. All but one location passed. In this instance, we had one one location that was cited. More recently, they've changed the punishments, and now they've become mandatory. So the first infraction is a $1,000 fine. If that infraction is it's the sale to a minor, there's also a mandatory loss of permit or license, and that duration is anywhere from 1 day to 30 days, and that would be up to the board to make that decision. Okay. Now, my understanding is that the location has been served with the notice that they are in violation, just waiting to hold a public hearing for the board to make a determination whether they want to do the 1, the 30. I think it's important that if we're going to do this, we at least afford an opportunity for the business owner to be here. So for a couple of reasons. One, so they can understand how serious the town of Freetown Board of Health is relative to these violations. And maybe be able to give their side of the story, if you will, if there's any mitigating circumstances or such. I have the reports. I believe they've already been forwarded to you. It's very thorough, what Joe Cavallo does, right down to the temperature and whether it was windy or not on that day. And they do that for a reason, because you have to be very, very specific as to what happened out there. The less wiggle room in your enforcement, the better off you are when it comes to issuing the fine and whatever punishment associated with that. So I thought it important to bring that to the Board of Health's attention, and I will reach out to the business owner and let him know that we can invite him in the future. I just don't know. They're probably gonna ask what they think that what the punishment is going to be. I can simply either tell them it's gonna be decided that night, it's gonna be between 1 and 30 days. Most Board of Healths, what they've done is they've come up with a policy relative to this, and they'll just make a general statement. First infraction, it's a 3-day loss. Second, it's a 7-day. Third, it's a 30-day. Okay? And then what they do is so that you don't necessarily have to have these meetings every time. And you don't have a situation where one business may get punished one way and then another business gets punished a different way. It keeps it fair across the board. Now, I'm not suggesting we do that tonight, but it might be something to consider in the future, right, on how we wanna do that. And if we did do that, then it would be a lot easier for Joe and or whoever's gonna be working for or with Joe to simply go out there and issue the fine, issue the suspension, and then afford the violator an opportunity for a public hearing to be discussed at that point in time.
Mhm.
So, when is your next meeting?
We have one prior to, town meeting, and then June 21st,
Okay.
so June 6th.
So if we can push them to June 21st, and then, you know, if they
I know
ask you.
there are timeliness issues relative to these things. Like I said, the violation, I believe, has already been served, so I think we've answered that time. But there's an outstanding item on that relative to the number of days that they're going to be.
I mean, we could always have it, if we need to, we can schedule and have another meeting in between then, that'd
Yeah.
just be the only agenda item,
Okay.
kind of,
All
that's
right.
fine with me.
So I'll follow back up with Joe Cavallo. He's gonna be moving on, there's a new person over there, over in New Bedford. It's a system that we've used for a while, again, it's a no cost to the town. In and of itself, that's a job in and of itself, is to make sure tobacco compliance, right down to the tax stamps. I know, Jared, you're gonna understand this, Mark, you've worked in the retail world, like convenience store world. And so no flavors, nothing, I just spent 4 hours on a Zoom today relative to tobacco control, and, boy, they can be sneaky, I'll tell you, the retailers. You know, names of things, they actually have a sniff protocol, whereas it might not be labeled as a flavor,
Mhm.
you know, just have some crazy name, but, there's a protocol by which if you want to smell it, to see, you know, you go in a room, no other people can wear cologne or perfume, and you have to be no ventilation, it's a very, so.
So I would just say, Kevin, that if he says anything about the fine or violation time, you can just point him to what you just spoke of, right?
Okay.
It's, you know, $1,000, this is the minimum, it's
Mhm.
$1,000, and you don't know, cause obviously.
I mean, I think the board could make, we don't have a choice, and again, confirm this today, and I think I sent you that thing, and, was on a Zoom call with some lawyers and other enforcement agents throughout the Commonwealth. And, that was a specific question I asked during the Zoom, and that's what I was told, it's because it was a sale to minor. So we can make a decision tonight to go with the one, if we wanted to, and see if they wanted to appeal. But my suggestion is going to be that even if we do that, that we come up with some sort of standard. So the first violation is 1 day.
But I guess what would be my point, is why do it now and then do a separate meeting
Yep.
again with them? So let's make that determination with them here.
Sure.
So rather than
In
trying to
fairness.
come up with it tonight, right?
Absolutely.
Let's do it all
Yeah.
at once with
Yeah.
them here, so.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Alright,
So,
great,
thank you.
Okay.
then we're good
Yeah.
there?
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you as
Thank you
always,
very
Kevin,
much.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Okay, moving on, next agenda item, open session meeting notes from 5/5/22. I'll entertain a motion to approve these meeting minutes.
Motion made?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So this is the executive session meeting notes from the meetings listed in attachment B. Which. Is it attachment B or A? So there's two different ones, huh?
Attachment
B
B
is the executive session.
Yep.
Minutes for approval, but not release.
Okay, gotcha. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the release of those meeting minutes.
Motion made?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you say release? No.
Yeah, release.
It's just to approve them
Okay,
as done,
sorry.
but not release.
Okay, so I'll change that motion,
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to approve, but not release,
Hmm.
the executive session minutes from, attachment B.
Motion made?
Second.
All in favor, or sorry,
Aye.
yeah. I'm all screwed up today, alright. So then, yeah, okay, I got confused there, cause now attachment A is the next
Yeah.
agenda, okay. So this is, agenda item 5, to vote whether to approve release executive session minutes with the redactions to fulfill public records requests, in attachment A. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the release of those executive session minutes.
Motion made?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alright, agenda item 6 is we have a first right of refusal for 26 Keene Road in East Freetown, shown as lot 26 in the assessor's map. Assessor's map 245 consisting of 11.1 acres for the sum of $400,000. the recommendation has been that to not exercise our
Mhm.
right of first refusal. I can't think of a reason why the town would need this land.
No.
So, any questions or concerns on that?
No?
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion, for us to not, exercise our right of first refusal for this property.
Motion made?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on, agenda item 7, to vote whether to approve the Bristol County ARPA grant agreement, which we have in our agenda item, or sorry, in our packet.
Yeah, just the first step that you have to, approve in order to spend any funds.
Yep, it makes sense to me. Any questions?
No.
Alright, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the Bristol County ARPA grant agreement.
Motion made?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item 8, discussion and vote on whether to approve the application to utilize Bristol County ARPA funds for the purchase and installation of new remote, read water meters in the amount of $400,000. And this ARPA money is pretty much just intended for water and sewer,
Right.
right? That's what it's, so I think that's something we definitely need to do. So any questions? Alright, so I'll entertain a motion to, approve the application to utilize Bristol County ARPA funds for the purchase and installation of new remote red water meters in the amount of $400,000.
Motion made?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Similar discussion on the, discussion and vote on whether to earmark $200,000 of the Bristol County ARPA funds to be utilized as a match in a grant application for the engineering of the sewer line extension.
Is this the Main Street, North Main, South Main?
Yep, so this would get us, or help us get us to the place where we can actually get some, the engineering done there, and that this will go a long way, and we get to use ARPA money instead of, taxpayer money.
That's a win-win.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the, to earmark $200,000 of the Bristol County ARPA funds to be utilized as a match in a grant application for the engineering of the sewer line extension.
Motion made?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And also it helps us get the grant, right, if we have that
If we don't get
earmarked.
the grant, the money won't be earmarked, obviously, but the match always makes the grant applications more appealing.
Yes, that makes sense. Alright. Next, agenda item 10, discussion and vote whether to earmark $200,000 of the Treasury ARPA funds to utilize as a match in a grant application for the cost of construction drawings for the new COA library building. Pretty self-explanatory. Any questions?
No.
Alright, I'll entertain a motion to approve, to earmark $200,000 of the Treasury ARPA funds to utilize in a match grant application for the cost of construction drawings for the new COA library building.
Motion made?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 11, discussion and vote whether to approve the request for a transfer from reserve fund to a department, what department, is it the highway department technically?
The police actually pay, it's a whole department for gasoline and
Yeah.
diesel fuel.
Just the way it runs, it's from the reserve fund to department for gasoline and diesel fuel, so pretty much, as everyone knows, I think we underestimated how much fuel would cost this year. So this seems like a necessary step we have to take so that we have money to pay for that.
Now, is this quarterly, or is this, Chief, is this gonna be for the rest of the year, the beginning of the fiscal year?
This will get us to the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. So about a month.
So right now, we have a deficit of approximately $8,000, and then, I think you have it before you, we projected out the gasoline, gallons based on a certain fee, also the diesel gallons based on a certain fee, and that's what we came up with.
Yep,
If it runs less than that, then whatever was approved out of the reserve fund will remit back into the general fund at the end of the fiscal year.
Great.
alright, makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Makes sense.
Alright, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for the transfer from reserve for the, from the reserve fund for the gasoline and diesel fuels in the amount of $24,844.35.
Motion made?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is the winter sand contract for fiscal year 2023. And it looks like we went out for 3 bids, only got 2 back. Cape Cod Aggregate Corp came in at $16.50 per ton delivered. And G Lobes Construction came at $20.80 per ton delivered. So I think that this seems pretty straightforward. Cape Cod Aggregate seems to be significantly cheaper. Any questions?
No.
So I'll entertain a motion to award the winter sand for fiscal year 2023 contract to Cape Cod Aggregate Corp.
Motion made.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next is discussion and vote whether to approve the Complete Streets Funding and Design Assistance Scope of Service from environmental partners and the grant paperwork for the Mass DOT grant. So you talked about this one a little bit, just some.
So
I
there's
saw
a
this.
couple of things going on here, right?
Yeah.
So there's the Complete Streets, grant that we applied for and received from, Mass DOT for $38,000.
That's right, yep.
So we, are working with environmental partners to actually provide those services, which will be looking at different things around town and proposing 10, different projects and then prioritizing those projects. And that contract, this is approving that contract with environmental partners to do those services under the Complete Streets grant funding. So it'll be paid for out of that, and they've agreed to do that for the $38,000, which is the amount of the grant.
Okay.
And approving any Mass DOT paperwork. Cause we also have 2 shared street grants, and I'm gonna make sure I'm not taking these out of order. So those are actually
Shared, that's on
further down,
16.
so yeah, we'll look at that. So that's what this one's about, is the Complete Street Grant for $38,000 and the agreement with environmental partners to actually do the work and create the prioritization plan, which will then, we'll have to go into the next phase of the grant and apply for that.
Alright, perfect, thank you. Alright, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the Complete Streets Funding and Design Assistance Scope of Service to the from environmental partners and the grant paperwork for Mass DOT grant.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And next is vote whether to approve Deborah Petty to sign the environmental partners scope of service for the Complete Streets and Funding and Design Assistance. So this is just to expedite the process,
Yeah.
and so I'll entertain a motion to approve Debbie to be able to sign the paperwork for this.
Motion made.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright. So agenda item 15, discuss and vote on whether to approve the request for a 1-day event for the John Tyler Trahan Memorial Scholarship Fund on 6/11/2022.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I address the board?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I read it from here, please?
Yeah, please just say your name.
Okay, my name is Kathleen Talbot. I'm at 9 Cushman Avenue in East Freetown. First off, Mr. Matthews, Mr. Zager, and Mr. Lopes, first of all, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Let me start off by saying I have a great deal of respect and sympathy for anyone who loses a child or family member due to wars, illness, accidents of any kind. Your life as you knew it will never be the same. I get it. I lost a childhood friend to the Vietnam War. He was 19. I know how that affected his family. The family unit is never the same after such a loss. I am also not against fundraisers. This past weekend, I worked 4 days at the Lakeside Family Festival with an average of 6 hours a day. I baked Monday through Wednesday from 9 to 7, Thursday to Friday from 7 to 4, so that I would have something for the good table that I volunteered at. With that said, as you know, I introduced myself already where I lived and everything else, but I moved there on June 24th of 1987. I love this neighborhood. It was always quiet, calm, and peaceful. Back on February 12th, I did the most difficult thing I had ever done. I had to file a written noise complaint against my neighbor, Nicholas LaCoya, who lives at 7 Cushman Avenue. Our properties abut each other. Last August, it was Nicholas LaCoya's first time running a scholarship fundraiser for his brother-in-law, Tyler John Trahan. He began building and designing this track a few weeks before the event. Finally, a week before the event, I approached him. He told me that he had a permit for this event, and I naively told him that being his property, I didn't have a legal right to stop it, and he agreed wholeheartedly. I told him that I know it would be very loud since he and a few friends have been driving on his lawn with no track for a while. I was assuming that it was to see how the carts would handle on the grass. Then I told him that I was concerned about any kind of damage done to my fence. He told me that if there was any damage, he would pay for the repairs. Afterwards, we obviously left in good favor because he asked if I would allow the onlookers to come over to my yard and stand behind my fence to get a closer look at the race. I told him that was not going to happen. He accepted my answer, and that was that. The race took place from 11 to 4. Thinking that it was really only a one-time deal, I did go over to buy food from the food truck and went to look at the Chinese auction and took part in the raffle. I then left and went back home. My support will not be happening this year, as I told Nicholas when he dropped by with his son Toby a few weeks ago to give me a letter. I would like to pass some of these things over to the chairman. I really would like you to see the letter and the pictures and the flyer. Thank you.
Yep.
Since that big race last August, they decided it was so much fun, they would continue doing it. As you can see from this drone picture from their Facebook page, this was last year's track. Hay bales were staked into the grounds, and it was a protection factor. Now we have logs and tires to look like a real racetrack. I'm learning quite a bit on how slowly government things run, so I took matters into my own hands. I went to the bylaws of the town and realized that Mr. LaPoya was not forthright in his request for a permit, either this year or last year. Because if the topic of the go-kart race was offered to you, there would not even have been a need for this meeting. I feel he and his friends think that because his track is a dirt track and not a paved track, that it is legal. Let me bring up the bylaw that I found. I'm not in the habit of bringing up bylaws and articles, so please bear with me. Article 24.4, Part C, or third item, or third bullet, states, no go-kart or all-terrain vehicle track shall be operated within the town of Freetown without a license issued by the Board of Selectmen, after a hearing conducted in accordance with regulation adopted by the Board of Selectmen. I believe that this goes back to the old outer limits that was based where Crossroads Common is now. I'm sure the neighbors there, who were close by, did not like it, and there was nothing to be done until someone came up with this bylaw. So I learned an important lesson. You can't do whatever you want on your property if there is a law written and passed. I came alone to fight my own battle because that was how I was taught. My dad said, if you feel strongly about something, you are willing to fight for it. I don't need a ton of friends to support me. This is my battle to protect my home. Eventually, I will have to sell. I want to get the full cost of my home, not take a loss due to this track. I also didn't want my friends and neighbors to come and have to take a stand for either of us. I get along well with all of them. Why put them in conflict with something that is between him and his abutters? Why turn neighbor against neighbor? Simply put, my property joins his. The track is about 10 feet from my bedroom and den, and this is my fight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am Chuck McCray. I live at 7 Hawes Drive in East Freetown. I want to wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Talbot's remarks about we are not here to disrespect the Gold Star family. Bullshit. All of us, I trust I'm not going to be interrupted again.
Yep.
So we are not here to in any way disrespect the Gold Star family. If they want to have a fundraiser with go-karts, there are other alternative properties that they can use. I understand in Rochester, etc. This is kind of a network of tracks. What this amounts to is that this track is against the law. It is clearly against the town bylaws. In fact, I had filed a written complaint 3 weeks ago to the Board of Selectmen about this track. Ms. Souza, your administrative assistant, acknowledged receipt, but to this point, to this date, I have never heard from this board or from the town administrator. I don't know if it's just a lack of communication. I'm hoping it's not transparency. But this track is clearly in violation of the law. As the Board of Selectmen, you have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for the finances of the town. Right now, the law in town is not being enforced, to my knowledge. I intend to procure legal counsel and to sue the town of Freetown if this bylaw is not enforced. Okay? I also have filed another complaint regarding a weekend incident at my home, and it was right on the property. I realize we can't discuss personnel issues in open session of the Board of Selectmen, but I please ask you to review that complaint. It's been also filed with the fire chief, and to please take it seriously, because I believe that public servants need to be held to a higher standard. I am a public servant. I'm a veteran teacher of 33 years, most recently in the New Bedford Public Schools. I also have, up until recently, was the vice president of the New Bedford Educators Association. So I'm familiar with personnel rules, regulations, due process, etc. So I urge you to look into that, and I expect that I'm gonna be hearing from the board and from the fire chief in a timely manner. Thank you.
So to be clear though, so I reviewed Article 24.4C, and what it does state is that, you know, for this event specifically, you know, there is a permit available for, a one-day permit that can be, you know, made available for situations like this, right? I understand that if this racetrack is being run on other days and there's noise violations, totally get that. That is maybe outside of the bylaw, but I think this bylaw is in there and specifically speaks to if the board does approve a license, you know, a permit for the racetrack for that day, then it would be within the guidelines.
Can I say something else, please? If you see the letter he gave me, I underlined a particular thing where he said he wanted to have races every other Saturday that would run from 11 to 6. We're talking 7 straight hours. I have a video. If you wanna listen to 30 seconds of what I have to listen to for 7 hours, I am more than willing to play it. Okay? It's noise. There's no need for it. He tells me he's going to keep it quiet. There's no way on God's green earth he can keep those go-karts quiet, except they go and push it around the track with no engines running. That's the only way it's going to be quiet. And I don't think that's right to have. I'm almost done. Let me finish, please.
Please do.
I am tired. I have told him about the noise. He does nothing for it. We have paid since you gave him the permit last year that he runs this continuously. There's no stopping it, and he will not do it.
So I understand what you're saying. I think that's a different issue. Today what we're talking about is the permit specifically for that one day
But I
event.
don't want him to get an inch and take 10,000 yards, because that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, what the board has to vote on is what is in front of us on our agenda, right? And what's on our agenda,
I understand that.
you
I
understand?
understand that, but I did want you to know what we're.
I understand, and you know, there's avenues to go down to address those issues.
And so how will those issues be addressed?
I mean-
Because, sir, we have actually appealed to the Board of Selectmen, and so far you have done nothing
Well, it's
to
well
help
within
us.
the noise
Excuse me,
ordinance.
you're not, you
Well
haven't been
within the noise
recognized.
ordinance.
Gentlemen.
Mr. Chair,
Everyone needs to
One person
relax.
at a time.
Everyone needs
Mr.
to
Chair,
relax.
you need to really put him in order here.
Me,
Okay,
alright.
Nick, would you like to respond?
I do, yes. I'm gonna read aloud, the letter that we sent to the people, because there's a lot of rumors, and there's a lot of, things that are being said that simply aren't true, okay? So I said that, I'm gonna paraphrase the letter, because we basically said, if anyone has any trouble with us, please address us directly, we'll stop, we'll do whatever we have to do to appease anyone, okay? But, that's nice that they wanna attack, and my wife, who's in fear of stepping up here, this is the letter that she gave to me to read, and I request permission to read it to you.
Yep, please, go for it.
Okay. I am writing this letter to reach anyone opposed to the charity go-kart event on 7 Cushman Avenue. Now, this is Molly Trahan speaking. I would like to say, I understand your dislike for gatherings, multiple cars, busyness on our small, quiet streets. I've written letters to all of our neighbors and gladly welcome conversation with anyone, anytime. up until 3 nights ago. On Saturday, what Mr. LaPre was speaking of, 2 specific neighbors went nuclear on my husband and one of our sons, screaming, swearing, screaming, swearing, taking photos of our child without permission, which he has on his phone, okay? Trying to provoke some reaction from me. However, I withheld. They finally resorted to verbal threats with a horrific announcing we should keep our lights on tonight because Mr. LaPre is going to fuck my wife.
Oh, what?
Are you kidding?
Those were words taken right out of his mouth.
No way.
Please watch the language.
Please,
So-
that's wrong.
So, it is wrong. It is wrong that she has to
So
live in
lying.
fear from you two
Lying.
people.
All right,
From
Nick,
YouTube.
Nick, let's, I don't think this is gonna help the situation.
Okay, but it's absolutely demonic and gross for anyone to comment like that, never mind in front of our child. Our neighborhood told us this man is a middle school teacher in middle school. How disturbing. What if he really does rape people?
All right,
What
Nick,
if the
Nick,
person
Nick,
really
Nick,
does?
Nick,
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, my
You can
character
read the
is being
complaint.
assassinated here.
Okay,
It is really up to, this is an open session of the Board of Selectmen, it's being videoed, this needs to stop.
Yeah.
Free speech. Free speech.
No, it
What?
doesn't,
All right,
You
Nick.
sir.
said it out loud.
No, sir, this is, no, sir, this is.
let's go, come on, please, everyone, relax.
Can I finish?
All right,
No.
Nick, I don't think this is gonna help right now. If you wanna forward that to me, I'll absolutely read it. I just don't
I
think
will.
that should be,
It's
It's
written
not-
in the police report.
okay, so I get it.
So,
This needs to, we need to take the 10 notches down right now,
thank you.
all right? So, if you wanna talk about specifically the event, anything of that
Anyway.
nature, I'm more than happy to hear you out.
I will.
But I
I
think we
will.
gotta stay away from that particular exchange.
Right, but
all
it
right?
has to be known that people who advises children is speaking.
I hear you, and that's just,
Okay.
Can I speak? Can
I
I
think
speak?
that it's-
I'm at the podium.
Well, can I speak after him, please?
we
As
have,
a person that was there at this.
I didn't give you permission to speak yet, so please, Nick, if you wanna talk anything about the event,
So anyway, the event raises money, for in the name of Tyler Trahan. And yes, it's a course that is that's on our thing, strictly for entertainment purposes only. There's no, the only money that's involved is straight donations, and all we do is, we were just trying to raise money for a good cause for pretty much the biggest hero. I mean, I know you guys had an extra day of vacation, this week, which I hope you guys really appreciated, but it was because of a fallen soldier, someone who died for your freedom. But you wanna be a big shot.
all right, Nick, just stick to the, okay.
That's what the event's about. It's about,
Hey,
It's
you know
about
what
freedom.
hits me close to home, my
Right,
brother's a veteran.
but it's a bigger issue than what they wanna make it out like.
I understand. Name, please?
My name is Rita Lapre. I own the house at 7 Haws Drive,
Story.
and my son lives with me. Okay, I'm a widow. And my son went to take pictures of
so-
the track. No, because I wanted to get this straightened out. And we were taking, he took one picture, and he
This
took a picture of the
This
track.
This is not on the agenda tonight,
But
we're not speaking about that
I have to
particular,
clear this up.
we're not speaking about that particular event, I
Nothing clear.
understand.
It's
It
clear-
is, because
it's
you're
clear as day.
lying, you're.
Excuse me, one at a
Excuse
time.
me.
Ladies and gentlemen, one thing
Excuse
at a time, please. Please, you have the floor, please continue.
Okay.
Nick, give her a minute, please.
And I was there, and we were talking, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Lakaya came screaming, what are you doing? Or what do you think you're doing? And they spoke about the track and everything. And then Mr. Lakaya said, and I find it very offensive, I'm 79
Okay,
years old.
please,
We
please,
can't
do
speak.
not, please do not.
79 all right, and he said, oh, we know you sleep with your mother.
Okay,
Can-
could you please,
So that's a
That-
separate
that-
issue that we are,
that
we're
has
aware of.
nothing to do with what we're talking about right now, we're talking
Well,
about
he brought it
the
up.
license for an
No,
event.
when
He
you-
brought
Nick,
it up.
And I asked him to
He
stop.
brought
I
it
said,
up.
Can
no,
we-
You
Wait, we need to
Ladies
find
and
out.
gentlemen, once again, we're here to discuss the Memorial Fund on June 2nd.
Okay.
Anything
why
else,
can't
I
you have a
understand.
funderaiser?
All right,
Yes.
Yes, you could.
I'm
Yes,
gonna entertain a
by
motion to
all
go into
means.
recess.
fundraising is
Motion
fine.
made,
Second.
Alright,
Fundraising
We're now
is
in
fine.
recess.
we're now in
Okay.
recess.
thank you.
Alright, we're now back from recess. So, moving on, we have a public hearing. So this is the public notice, continuation of public hearing. The Freetown Board of Selectmen will conduct a continuation of a public hearing from May 16th, 2022. Meeting relative to an application submitted by Excel Recycling LLC for a sale of secondhand furniture and merchandise license for a business located at 17 Ridge Hill Road in Assonet. The hearing will be conducted at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 31st, 2022 at the police station, Community Room 15 Memorial Drive, East Freetown, Massachusetts. Alright, so I know a lot of folks here for the public hearing. So the way this is going to work is I'll have about a half an hour for comments. If you want to speak, I ask you to please come up, sit near the microphone if you're sitting in the back so that the camera can pick you up. After half an hour, we will close the public hearing. We will then vote on the license. Just to make it clear, as I think a lot of you are aware, there already has been a settlement reached for this. So we are legally required to approve this, which is a unique situation. But that is the situation. So if anyone would like to please come up and speak on the secondhand furniture and merchandise license for Excel Recycling, now's your time.
you at the podium?
You the podium, I think this is fine right here. Just sit just near the microphone so that
Yeah.
the camera can pick you up.
Okay.
And it's 6:03 now, so try to wrap this up around 6:35.
So just at your time?
That's perfect, thank you. Also, I should mention we have Attorney Pucci here. You know, I might kick over any questions or concerns to him. He can do his best to answer anything.
Okay, so, good evening. First, before I start, I wanted to ask, is it possible to have the comments that were provided on April 14th entered into the record here? Or is that not, it
The
can happen?
April 14th comments, so when we were at the middle school, high school?
Yep.
I'm not sure. I mean,
This
No.
isn't like a.
It's
court of
recorded,
law-
right?
law where we.
I mean, I wasn't
We
sure
don't
that was
have
in the
to
record, I
comment.
felt like it should be, just,
Yeah,
I mean, I know
I'm not
it's a
sure how
done
that
deal,
works.
but, okay, so anyway, thank you for having this hearing, I think it's fair to say it almost didn't happen. The temptation is to sit here and rehash the last 7 years, I won't do that. Though we have a record from those last 7 years to consider, it's prudent, we also consider this square one, a restart. Of course, you've already pretty much voted, so I don't, anyway, litigation has been put to rest. However, we cannot ignore what is right before our very eyes. The record of complaints stacked to the hilt in every department of this town is real. The complaints themselves, factual. The nuisance that Excel perpetrates onto residents is ongoing. If Marty was here, Marty, you told me to my face one day that the vibrations residents experience inside their homes from the shredder, from explosions inside the shredder, will never stop, that you cannot control them. You also acknowledged to me that what residents hear at their property is likely audibly louder than the level at which the sound tests. Sound is sound. A loud noise is a loud noise. If it hits your eardrums, it's a loud noise, no matter what it registers elsewhere. Emissions. In 7 years, no measure of best practice has kept visible emissions outside of steam out of the picture. There are supposed to be none. These emissions make people feel sick. We have 3 reports, one being the 2018 air test conducted by Mass DEP, scrutinized by attorney John Shea of Mackey & Shea, and a letter he wrote to DEP Zero Deputy Director at the time, Maria Pinot, the same DEP official who signed Excel back into compliance after a controversial sound test later in 2018, after license revocation, and which resulted in Compliance Chief Dan DeSalvio lambasting as, my word, fraudulent. That letter that Shea wrote is one of the main reasons we are here today, as former Selectman Pacheco used it in part to form the basis of her opinion as to why you did not deserve license renewal back in 2018. Unfortunately, she didn't share that letter with you in time for rebuttal before vote, a procedural error that you turned into 3 more years of running scot-free. Still, her concern, a valid one to say the least, has not been addressed. Only her procedural error has been addressed. It's shameful. 2 other reports on analysis conducted in 2019 are the Nelson Labs report and the Atlas report. And there's a fourth if you consider the Sage report out of Somerset, which is not a stretch considering their metal is our metal, or was, as EMR is now gone due to its inability to contain toxic dust that was escaping off-site and landing on residential property. Their dust is our dust here. These tests have all determined that there is the likelihood of contamination of residential property that is harmful to people's health. Your shredder is a source of varying size PM, VOCs, and HAPs. The contamination found is in line with emissions from an auto shredder and activities as scrap recycling and processing facility. The reality behind a revocation of license, the reality inside the court record is real. It is not arbitrary and capricious. In fact, it is the norm of any community that finds itself in the shadow of one of these recycling facilities. Which brings me to the next point, your definition of yourself. Residents, the planning board, our forming planning board chair, who is now our health agent, our current building inspector, former town officials and health agents.
Leah, can you hold 1 second? No, please no speaking while we have someone talking up here. Thank you, appreciate it.
DEP officials, environmental attorneys, the list goes on, of people who know that you are a scrap recycling facility defined in MGL Chapter 21H Section 2. And I am quite pleased to add to this list of those who are now in the know, you excel. The definition, scrap recycling facility, facility location, device, or unit where machinery and equipment are used for processing and manufacturing scrap metal into prepared grades and whose principal product is scrap iron, scrap steel, or non-ferrous metallic scrap for sale for remelting purposes. Appeals Court Decision Footnote 4. It notes that for the first time in litigation, you argued in appeals court that the license, which we are here for tonight, does not apply because you are a recycling facility. That is the first time you have acknowledged anywhere since this has become an issue that you are a recycling facility. In the category of things that cannot be made up, you, at the same time, were arguing in land court that you were not a recycling facility, so as not to have to go before the planning board for a special permit. You cannot have it both ways. What are you? Well, the IRS can tell you, and you may be both, and being one does not negate the other of requiring proper oversight and permitting. According to the IRS Audit Technique Training Manual for the scrap metal industry, their new MSSP Market Segment Specialization Program, which consults with the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries, a quote, peddler of metal is different from the processor because he does not process or store the scrap metal. A scrap peddler is usually a sole proprietorship reporting on a Schedule C, yet a peddler's license is all you seek. Meanwhile, there's an app recycling permit out there just waiting for your signature, Class A, but that's a fight, quote unquote, reserved according to Mass DEP for another day. The IRS also says that some processors have shredders. It states that scrap processors, which may purchase scrap just like peddlers, mills, and foundries, are also scrap dealers or scrap recyclers. So processor, dealer, recycler, which is it? A matter of semantics? No. They seem to be one and the same until we apply common sense, not to mention what we've learned over the last 7 years, which can only lead us to determine, since you generate recyclable, not just, and which also happens to be processed, material in the way of shredded scrap, you are more than a mere buying and selling operation as a scrapyard. You are more so a scrap recycling facility, clearly defined to a T in Mass General Law and a supreme match for Massachusetts regulated recyclable material regulations. Additionally, U.S. Customs agrees that what you are is a recycling facility. There's a harmonized tariff schedule also, like the IRS, relies on the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries, using its classification system for metals. For example, shredded automotive scrap, used for the manufacture of new goods, the recycling of it given, is classified with the numbers 210 and 211 in the Institute Scrap Specification Circular, numbers that the HTS relies on and that fall under their Chapter 72, which is important since you ship it off to Turkey for sale, not just within Freetown. Both the MSSP and ISRI's scrap spec circular can be found online. So whether you are approved for a junk license or not, which is limited to the buying and selling and peddling of junk, of which you are only engaged in the buying because what you sell is not junk, as junk is something you can discard. The recycling aspect of your operation is why we are here, at least why residents are here, as nothing in that industrial park has ever before prompted such nuisance. If you discard your generated material, what you and your truckers call junk, that is illegal disposal of hazardous waste. Enter the big umbrella of regulated recycling regulations, which thankfully in Massachusetts exempts you, provided you keep compliant from the extraneous hazardous waste regulations. But that's inexplicably not the world we are living in, so have a junk license. The junk license is incapable of dealing, no pun intended, dealing with the recycling aspect of your operation, which is the impactful part of what you do. If I were selectman, and don't you wish I was sitting up there with you all, I would recognize the insufficiency of this license in mitigating the risk that Excel poses to the public health. I would not approve it without Excel obtaining a special permit as a recycling facility from the planning board. This license is a no-brainer. Excel buys and sells scrap. It needs a license to do so. But that's not where this ends. Actually, that is where it ends. Where it starts is the generation of material which Excel sells, the other half of buying and selling. That is the impactful operation that ends us up here or in court beating to death a dead horse because the license is insufficient to deal with what we needed to deal with. That has been proven. It doesn't matter that DEP oversees an air permit. This shredding happens in Freetown. Freetown should have jurisdiction, enforcement authority over that shredder with the assistance of the DEP, not the other way around, and it needs to go to do so through a special permit. This license to buy junk should be approved only on the condition of Excel obtaining a special permit to recycle. Securing a special permit from the town has been the recommendation of the 2015 Planning Board and the current building inspector. It is but a mere footnote at this time that the town made a mistake in 2015 with its land use determination. But that does not mean it is obligated to live with the repercussions of that mistake forever. Indeed, it's obligated to correct it. And when the public health and welfare is at stake, like it is here now, that obligation becomes urgent. Planning board scrutiny is as follows, and it's not what we're discussing here, but and it isn't what we are discussing here, but to no avail, as the license cannot allow for it. This level of detailed and warranted scrutiny is for the planning board to tackle. In doing so, it would ensure, at the very least, according to bylaw, 1, that the use is not noxious, harmful, or hazardous, and will meet an existing or potential need. 2, the advantages of the proposed use outweigh any detrimental effects. 3, that the design and layout of the proposal assures the protection of adjoining premises against detrimental or offensive uses on the site. 4, the requested use will not create an unmitigated traffic congestion or safety issue. 5, the design of the proposal provides an adequate amount of spaces and for the proper layout of parking and loading areas. 6, the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining properties, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the town's residents. It goes on, the special permit granting authority shall determine that the proposal generally conforms to the principles of good engineering, sound planning, correct land use, and that the applicant has the means to implement the proposal if a special permit is granted. Finally, have you all read the Massachusetts Handbook for Selectmen put out by the Massachusetts Municipal Association? There is a section on licenses and permits. Second paragraph reads, there is a distinction between a license and a permit. As permits per the BOS refer to those given for parades, sidewalks, sales, etc., temporary events. Licenses, on the other hand, are grants or permission, a privilege. Without a license, the activity would otherwise be unlawful or in heavy need of regulation or supervision to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. For this reason, selectmen may issue only licenses specifically authorized by state law. There it is, state law, where all initial confusion and questions should have been directed, because the top of this licensing pyramid is not our measly junk bylaw. No, it is Mass General Law, Chapter 21H, Section 2. That is where this needed to start. From there, it should have gone directly to the planning board. This license for allowable use should have been the last consideration. The path to pursue this tiny little fact of flaw was wide open in 2015. Our bylaws allowed for it. These were the dots that needed connecting. Everyone and their brother, even, with all due respect, our own police chief, who said it was too far a stretch to consult NGL. They were all wrong. That is, except all those who weren't and who've been shut up for 7 years and who aren't going to take it any longer. The manual goes on to say, a granting of the license must be in the public interest, period. It repeats, selectmen must consider the public interest when deciding whether to issue or deny a license. I can't imagine a court would go against that. Yes, selectmen must have sufficient reason to both grant and deny. Neither granting nor denying can be arbitrary and capricious. No way in hell denying this license is arbitrary and capricious. Again, everyone and their brother knows it. The opposite is in fact true. You grant this, you are truly guilty of acting in an arbitrary and capricious manner. The manual states in clear and certain terms that these licenses are not the property of the license holder. You may argue that the license is your right, that your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness depends on this license, but good luck arguing that against the rights of residents that your so-called constitutional protection violates. No more crying for money, for bankruptcy, not when you're buying real estate in this market on Nantucket to the tune of $3 million. You think being labeled the scarlet letter of a sonnet is bad, you should try being the butt of There Once Was a Man from Nantucket. As I understand it, back in 2015 or 16, town administration and the building department received a letter from the planning board saying that Excel needed to secure a special permit as a recycler. The town told building to rip it up, destroy it. Whether it did or didn't, I don't know, but what I know for certain is the planning board was ignored. And that was done to the detriment of the public health, welfare interest, whatever you want to call it, however you want to define it. How do you define it? In closing, the manual urges selectmen to always check with planning officials and a zoning enforcement officer prior to issuing a new license to make sure the activity for which the license is being granted is a permitted use. In a phone conversation I had with building inspector Scott Barbado in 2017, I told him there were missing pieces to this permitting licensing puzzle. You know what he said to me? I hope you find them. This is not a game. The planning board knows, at least it did then, that you need a special permit as a recycler. The building inspector now knows you need a special permit as a recycler. The health agent, whoever it's been, has always known this is a nuisance. Nowhere in our bylaws or any table of use is it allowed what happens every day at 17 Ridge Hill Road. All operations should cease immediately. The first condition of any license should be acquisition of a special permit, and if you fail to secure one, Mass DEP needs to pay for your removal and proper setup at a proper location, and the Class A regulated recyclable material permit should be free of charge. This board cannot, in any good conscience, with any due diligence, with a straight face, right now, approve Excel's application for license, any license. If it does so with a poker face.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any comments or? I guess I'll make one note on that.
Can I hand this to you?
You can give it to Luann. You know, the courts, that obviously very well researched, you know, and I'm impressed. You definitely did a lot of deep digging in there. And at the end of the day, though, the courts have just ruled they won't shut them down, right? It's so I understand, you know, but Attorney Pucci, correct me if I'm wrong. That's just been over and over again. So right now they don't have a license. So if we don't issue them this license, which we have to anyways, but if we didn't, they're still going to continue to operate with no license and no restrictions at all. So, you know, that's, and I think I said this at it was the April 14th meeting, where at least we have a framework now to hopefully, you know, limit the hours and mitigate the impact of the town. I think it's, you know, I understand it's a very tough situation we're in. I get it. I mean, I
It doesn't mean anything. Why vote yes? Don't give it back.
I'm not being held in contempt of court, even though I don't agree with it. I'm not gonna be held in contempt of court to do that, Leah. I'm sorry. My name is not worth it.
The actually say to the order from the appeals court was to have a remand hearing.
Yes, and we also had the opportunity, the ability to, knowing where like how do I articulate this? The best path forward for the town, in our opinion, was to negotiate an agreement with them. That was our opinion, you know. So we had the opportunity to do that.
I mean, is it residents' opinion?
I mean, I think, you know, the voters will speak on that, right?
I have heard from both sides. Trust me, I know there's
I'm sure
a select group of people around that feel a certain way, and I appreciate that. Trust me, I do.
Those people are being harmed.
And then I've also heard from people from other places on both sides. There's people who live close to there who have told me they don't hear anything, they don't see anything, it doesn't bother them, and then the opposite. And then I've also had someone tell me that lives very far away that they've heard stuff. I highly believe that it came from this facility, but whatever. So, you hear it in all different angles. Trust me, it's.
Well, I mean, I've heard the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't understand how a court can order you. I don't understand how a court can do your job.
Well,
I mean, the order was for a remand hearing to take place. You guys settled, and part of that settlement was basically reinstating the license. I mean, that to me just reeks of
so if we did say
all sorts of things.
if we, this is what would have happened, if we didn't give them the license, they would have appealed that decision, right? They would have still, then they would have, that would have been, went all the way back up, we would have started off at day one again, day zero, right? When we initially denied their license. So then, think about how long this lawsuit's been going on, and they've been able to operate with no license at all. So if we denied that license, then, once again, it's gonna be a 4 or 5 year drawn out situation where they're able to operate with no restrictions at all, and that just doesn't seem like the best interest of the town for me.
I just don't buy it. I mean, I don't understand how you, also as the Board of Health, with a health agent who is basically declared Excel a nuisance, I mean, I don't understand why you cannot argue this further. Because the optics of giving them a license back and settling the way you settled and what you settled for, which has been a proposal that's been on the table for years and has been denied by other selectmen, because they won't be bought. I mean, it looks bad. It looks really bad.
Don't accuse me of being bought, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Right, no, but it looks like
What do you honestly?
No, Trevor, it does.
I mean, I think I've been very clear with, I understand your perspective on this. You know, I have to do what's in the best interest of the entire town, and, you know, this is an expensive.
Not the entire town is being directly harmed, right? Okay,
Well, all the
but
taxpayers are
but-
being harmed, right?
But the residents' health, nothing trumps the residents' health. And when you have residents, like I said, that we've got 4 reports that show the likelihood of toxic contamination, right? Which was one of the reasons why the license was revoked to begin with, because it was clear that this was harming residents. And so when you go ahead and say, well, you know, these few residents that are being harmed, and it's more than just a few, are not as important as the overall taxpayer in the town. I mean, that is absurd. That's a hurtful statement to make.
I don't think that,
Harmed by what?
Jim, you wanna? Yeah, just say your name
James Fillion, 4 Berkeley Ave, Sonnet. Harmed by what though?
It's
I haven't been involved in any of
heavy
this.
metals,
Okay.
okay, possibly PCBs. There's emissions coming out of the shredder. I don't know if you've seen the photos that put these neighborhoods in fume fog sometimes, where they get headaches, they feel nauseous. It's particulate matter, okay, tiny particulate matter. It's volatile organic compounds, hazardous air pollutants.
VOCs, yeah.
Okay, so you know all that. Oh, and then we've had 4 tests, 3 in Freetown and 1 in Somerset, that point to a harmful contamination of residential properties.
And by no means am I sticking up for Excel.
There's
I just
explosions, there's fires, there's sound, there's all sorts of stuff.
Okay. Alright. And what sort of heavy metals?
Yeah, sorry. This gentleman's been waiting.
Steve Tripp, 4 Alexander Drive. This is what I picked up this weekend out of my yard. I mean, it's been going on for 6 years of picking this plastic up. If he was a nice neighbor, he'd at least cover that pile or give this job up that's floating this stuff all around everybody's yard, okay? That's one thing that he's never fixed. 6 years he had to fix it, hasn't done it, okay? You're trying to give him this license back now with only a certain few holidays. I mean, he's closed for Christmas and New Year's and stuff. Who cares? It's freezing weather out there, and who's gonna go outside? You got Columbus Day, you got President's Day, you got all these other holidays that are in during the summer, and we can't even enjoy our yard because he's over there running. So you didn't add anything extra to this license. It's just like everything's in Excel's favor, nothing for the residents. You know, we still have to deal with the smoke coming from there, the noises, the smell. There's no place around that has any of that shredder stuff that stays outside. It's every one of them that's in a building. He gets privilege to put his outside and stack it to the walls. You're turning around and telling us now that he's gonna only be able to operate Saturdays, 18 Saturdays it says or something, 16 or 18
I thought
Saturdays.
it was 12.
12.
But
Okay,
I could be
so
wrong.
how he likes to play his game with words is he's still gonna be open on Saturdays. He's just not gonna run the shredder.
Yeah.
Well, how does that work? When he's over there dumping his trucks, granted, he doesn't take anybody else's truck in on Saturday, but he dumps all his trucks on Saturday and piles them with the claw thing and throwing them against the wall. So it's not like he's closed. You're saying he's closed, he's not
No,
closed.
well, my understanding though is that the shredder operation itself was the main issue, right? that's what
It's
causes.
part of it, but
Yeah.
it's still, what did you gain by giving him the license? You didn't gain anything on that. He still runs all the hours that he had before. He's still putting this plastic in everybody's yard. He's still, what did you gain? I don't get what you gained for any of us.
We
I mean,
gained, I think we gained a framework now to hold them accountable.
But
Okay,
if it's
let
been
me put it to-
proven, it's not gonna work.
Let me
But
put it to you like
there
this.
hasn't, the
Who's
permit
gonna call?
is not in place yet, so he hasn't violated any of the terms of that agreement yet, because
So.
we're voting on the agreement tonight.
But who's gonna make the complaints?
Who's gonna
You
enforce it,
expect the
and what
residents to do
is
it.
the enforcement gonna be?
The enforcement, there will be, I'm not exactly sure the framework or how that actually works, but I know.
The building inspector can go in and level
Yeah.
$100 fine. Nothing is gonna work.
Believe me,
mean,
I get it,
But I
it's a
think-
tough situation.
Yeah,
right?
it is, but
We don't have the
other
enforcement.
cities, other towns have done it, where they have removed these facilities. This should not be in a residential area. On paper, it's clear as day.
So,
I mean, to make it look like you're okay with it is not cool. You're also the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen. You've got a health agent. I mean, the town should really pick a side, because there's no middle ground here. There just isn't. There's no way that Excel is ever gonna cohabitate
So,
peacefully with the residents.
I'm gonna tell you that, I'm not gonna sit here and say how I pick a side, but I don't want anything to happen with anyone's health. I've been very clear about how I don't agree with certain parts of this and agree with other parts of it. But I do, one of the things we've talked about is testing, right? Hearsay is one thing, testing is another. So I promise you that I have to obviously get funding. I can't just say I promise you, but
Right.
funding, I want testing. You talk about Somerset, right? Somerset, did they do testing that caused it? Because you're talking about that they were
Yes.
over certain levels, okay? So
Right.
we haven't done we did one test so far really through the town. I would like to do more and see that something's happening. Or not happening.
But, right, fine. I mean, we can do testing whether they have a license or not. Excel's gonna run whether they have a license or not. So,
Yes.
for you guys to sit here and vote tonight, you're not voting, to vote, you're gonna really be, are they really, Attorney Pucci, are they going to be in contempt of court if they vote no tonight?
I'll just answer questions.
Yeah, please, you can answer,
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, George Pucci from KP Law. The order, everything that you said, Leah, was correct, other than the advocacy, but all the factual background was correct. The case was sent back from the appeals court, and they ordered a remand hearing. But notice in that, they didn't, they sent it back for remand hearing, but they didn't say, okay, board, you were correct in not renewing the license, we're gonna issue injunctive relief as a result of that, they just sent it back. Then the board voted that they wanted to, engage in mediation with Excel. We notified the court after the court received the remand order from the appeals court, we notified the court that the board was going to engage in this process, so the court was waiting to see what would happen with that before they said, well, when is the remand hearing going to be? And then the board ended up issuing reaching the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement only goes to the licensing issue. So what the board determined was, no matter what seemed to happen in the litigation over the denial of the license renewals, somehow it never resulted in Excel being shut down. So the board decided that they would settle that to try to get some terms in place as to a license, that would apply under the injunctive statute, which doesn't have a lot of teeth to it. The only thing I can tell you about the settlement, if you have a bag of stuff there, all these issues about emissions, or if you have something traveling that you think is from Excel onto your property, the town hasn't waived your rights with this agreement. The agreement for judgment goes to settling the license dispute. And the board determined that it would be, a majority vote of the board determined that it would be better to try to put something in place in terms of the license than to continue to litigate forever and never having any result as a
Right.
result of that. So
So,
if there's a contamination issue, If there's a Board of Health issue, anything like that all parties have reserved their rights on those issues. So the settlement has to do only with the junk dealer's license.
I
It
understand.
resolves the Superior Court case, and in terms of the board members talking about contempt, this agreement for judgment has now been endorsed and approved as an order of the court. So at least for this initial license renewal, the board definitely would be in violation of the agreement for judgment, which has been entered as an order of the court, if it doesn't issue the junk dealer's license now pursuant to that. So that's why the board is conducting this hearing as, provided under the bylaw, section 20.1, but is bound by this agreement for judgment to issue the license.
I mean, I think it's wholly irresponsible of you, I really do, because it didn't have to be this way. If you were going to do the exact remand hearing and say, okay, so here's that letter you wanted that we forgot to give you or failed to give you, and then vote the way the way they voted before on behalf of residents, then why? I mean, nothing else makes sense other than that you are pro Excel, at least a few of you, maybe not everybody, but at least 2 out of 3 of you. So I don't understand how
Don't
you
throw
can't
stones.
just sit here without, forget the court and the agreement, but just say, okay, we're gonna go back, we're gonna have this remand hearing. And then if you're gonna do things differently at all, make it more difficult. Like I said, put a condition on the license saying, we will give you a license for your junk dealing, for your buying and selling of scrap, but you are more than that. So as a recycler, we're gonna send you to the special permitting granting authority, which is the planning board, and say you're gonna acquire a special permit before we approve this license. I mean, why not do something creative outside the box like that, which I'm pretty sure you're within your authority to do, since you are supposed to consult your zoning enforcement officer and your health agent when dealing with something as serious as this.
I mean, we were negotiating this deal with through our attorneys. Like, we obviously didn't get everything we wanted in this deal, right? You never do. They didn't either, right? That is part of this. The other thing, just to kind of mention, is so if they do violate the terms of this agreement, right? Now this is a yearly license.
It always has been. What are you gonna do?
Well, I'm saying now
What's
if
the
we deny their license next time, right, for clear violations of the terms of this agreement, we have a much sturdier ground to stand on when they do appeal that and it goes up
No,
hypothetically.
because the law says that you're gonna pull the license, and what's the penalty? What is the penalty
The penalty of violations.
of them running without a license? You can pull the license.
Well, that's just it's been caught up in legal.
Trevor, what is the penalty? If you decide that they're in violation of your conditions that you put on this license and you pull the license come December,
If I pull their license, I mean, I guess they're going to appeal that process, and then the courts and the whole case
thing-
starts again.
right?
So
So I mean, why
that
not-
is what happens.
why- I mean, I just don't I know, whatever, it's done, right? It's a done deal, but I don't understand why the board didn't come back and say, okay, we're gonna have a remand hearing. Now we're gonna make it tougher. Now we're gonna do something that Excel doesn't expect. Yeah, you handed them, I mean, this was like, the license is now on a silver platter. It's not just a blank check, it's a blank check on a silver platter is what you did.
Any other comments? No. Any other comments? You all set?
It's not in the public interest.
Yeah, it's not much we can do about it, it's already done.
Okay. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now I'll entertain a motion to issue the secondhand furniture and merchandise license amended per town bylaw 20.1 referred to as a junk dealer's license for Excel Recycling LLC.
Not because I want to, but because I have to. Motion made.
No second?
Making that very clear.
I don't want to whatsoever, as many of you know. But I don't believe I have a choice in the matter, so.
Do I have a second?
No, we do not.
Okay, I'll second it.
I cannot.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So Moving on to agenda item, oh, we're moving back, I'm sorry, to agenda item 15, which we're not gonna have any more discussion on, because that obviously didn't work well. I'm gonna simply entertain a motion to approve the request for a one-day event for the John Tyler Trahan Memorial Scholarship Fund on 6/11/2022.
Could we have a few minutes of discussion with the parties involved, as far as quorum and what to do moving forward beyond this year?
Can I just say one thing, with respect?
Is it gonna be with respect, Nick?
We tried to do this the right way, and there's obviously bigger issues that this town has to handle. And I will withdraw the permit, but I just want it to be known that we, as a family, have tried everything to do things the right way. And we've been painted a certain way, and
I'm not,
and I don't, it's not fair, because we didn't do anything out of anger, we didn't do anything without a disrespect. All we tried to do was the right thing, and that's where we are. And now it's a throwing fit between people, which these people don't know me from a hole in the wall, nor do I know them. But I do know that there's been some things said and things done towards us.
And I hear you, we're gonna leave that, I don't think that this is the right venue for the neighborhood
But I'm just
issues.
saying, we're not trying to be bad, we were trying to do things nobly, we were trying to do things the right way, and obviously, again.
I hear you.
I think that, it's what the event's about. I can't go against it. I feel for the neighbors, I do, and that's a whole separate issue that you guys are gonna have to take up as far as whether or not they're racing at other points, but.
Yeah, you're not, so are you withdrawing the permit? Yeah, I mean, I made a motion, I hear you, what you're saying, sorry.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Alright, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Alright, so, moving on to agenda item 16.
So we have the permit.
You have the permit.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's.
Yep. Alright,
Council, Trevor.
what's,
Council.
yes, I'll set with council. Thank you, Attorney Pucci, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Alright, discussion vote whether to approve the funding agreement between the town of Freetown and Mass DOT for the Shared Streets and Spaces Grant. This is what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so this is a separate grant than the Complete Streets grant. This is a Shared Street and Spaces grant, and there's two pieces to this. One is going to fund a crosswalk between the elementary school and Little Fenway.
Perfect.
A really nice crosswalk because a lot of kids cross there when the ball games are going on. And the other piece of this is an equipment-only grant, which is funding a piece of equipment to plow the sidewalks in Freetown. That'll go to the highway department, and some speed trailers for the police department, and that'll just be the purchase of equipment. So the selectmen just have to approve the funding agreement between the Mass DOT and the Shared Streets for those grants.
Perfect, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the funding agreement between the town of Freetown and Mass DOT for Shared Streets and Spaces Grant.
Motion made.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excuse me. Discussion and vote on whether to approve and sign the agreement between the town of Freetown and Pedersen Inc., GPI, for design of the Kelly Drive roadway and drainage improvements. And I read about that, it seems like there's a real issue of that, on that dead end road where people get flooded in.
Yeah.
Seems like it's a necessary thing we have to do. Can't have people stranded at their house.
Still good for us, there it is.
Yeah, and the total cost on that, this is just for the design, right?
It's around 15,000.
15,000-ish, yeah, okay.
This was, I would assume, was submitted by the highway department, right? Chuck
Yeah,
submitted this,
yeah. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the agreement between Town of Freetown and Greenman Pedersen Inc. for the design of Kelly Drive roadway and drainage improvements.
Motion made.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion and vote whether to approve carpentry quote from H.V. Collins for the police station security and electrical in the amount of $2,070.40.
This is just the final work that needs to be done to complete the police station, just installation of some doors with different security than
That's
what
right.
was original.
Yep, makes sense, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the quote.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, Carlos, Personnel Board.
Personnel Board. All right. Number 19, discussion and vote on whether to approve the mutual operating agreement, other known as MOA, between the town of Freetown and the Freetown Police Association regarding boat ramp and town beach police details for the spring and summer season, which is in pages 84 to 85. After reviewing them, looks like they're just, like most years, time and a half of their basic pay, unless you're a union agreement. It's based on whatever right there under their bargaining agreement. So no change there. It covers our hours that we need.
Alright,
So any questions?
nope.
All right, I entertain the motion to approve the MOA between the town of Freetown and the Freetown Police Association regarding boat ramp and town beach police details for the spring and summer seasons.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, number 20. Accept the resignation of Stacy Moniz, apologize if I butchered that, as senior clerk effective May 19, 2022, page 86. She has moved on to another job, so I don't see any issues to not move forward on this.
Nope.
I entertain a motion to approve the resignation of Stacy Moniz.
I'll make that motion.
So I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, number 21. I'm really gonna butcher this one. Appoint Ozzy C. Malio
That's a
to the
tough one.
Freetown.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, to the Freetown Historical Commission effective June 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025, pages 87 through 90. I entertain a motion. I don't see any issue not to entertain the motion, so I will entertain a motion to appoint Ozzy Malio to the Freetown Historical Commission effective June 1st, 2022 through 6/30/2025.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 22, discussion and vote on whether to not hire a cemetery sexton and hire another laborer in highway department to cover the cemetery sexton workload. So we remember a few sessions ago, we hired a sexton, and I believe they were on for a handful of hours, maybe a handful of days. Deb could probably speak more to it. But the discussion was had, since we having a hard time hiring and new employees that I would say don't have any benefits, mostly part-time, which this would fall under, would it make more sense to hire another laborer with the highway department than kind of combine the duties of that laborer to do both positions?
Yeah, I don't see, I mean,
Right? That way.
I guess, Deb, you have any comments on this one? What's that?
Yeah, so what is, typically in the past, we've hired temporary personnel for the summer to mow the lawns at the cemetery right on Main Street. And every year they've gotta go through the exercise of hiring somebody temporarily and training them to do the work. So when we don't have anybody, Chuck takes care of it with the highway department, kindly so. So the thought process this year was, maybe we could hire another laborer to the highway department.
Mm-hmm.
Will cost more money, obviously, it's a full-time employee that will work year-round, but will also help with the plowing, because we're having trouble getting plowing contractors as well. And we wouldn't have to go through this exercise every year of hiring a sexton. So the cemetery commission met and voted and recommended that as well.
Oh, great.
And so I thought it needs to come to this board. Chuck does have if the budget is approved at the town meeting, he does have the funding to do this. Probably at a special town meeting in October, we would move the budget from the cemetery budget, which is about $9,000 or $10,000 over to his budget to help pay for the labor, but he is funded at this point in time. He could afford a laborer if this is something the board thinks
Yep, seems like,
Yeah,
Makes
I
sense.
don't have a problem with it, and I think, maybe some of the other stuff I think of off the top of my head, one of the issues we've had is shoveling, right?
Shoveling, right, I was thinking the same
So
thing.
maybe Chief will be happy to hear this, maybe we can try and get someone dedicated here to shoveling as well, right? So,
I was kinda thinking the same thing, I might have to change the, job
Description,
description
yeah.
for the union, but I was thinking the same thing, that might be helpful.
because in that, right now, we have the offset of the cemetery for the summer months for the mowing or whatever, but then we're saying we're keeping them full-time, in the winter, you think of.
I thought
Right,
that was the
so-
first thing that came to my mind too, shoveling, cause we're so short-handed, we only have one person that can shovel every town building.
Yeah,
And he can't when it's really snowing,
Yeah.
it's just very
Yeah.
difficult.
I have trouble shoveling my own driveway, never mind.
Yeah, it's not just like he doesn't, he's responsible for the town hall, the police station, the
Yeah.
COAs, the libraries, two
Absolutely.
libraries, I mean, it's very difficult, that's been an issue this past winter.
It's a great solution to the issues across the year.
Alright,
So, I think,
I'll make the motion.
okay,
and I will second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kathy was asking for her papers back.
All right, moving on. Number,
I passed them down, I think.
oh, yeah, sorry. No, this is good.
I think, wait, nope, that's not it.
What you looking for?
There should be 4 pages.
2, 3, 4. You got it. Oh,
That's
those two
continuing.
connected, I don't know.
Yeah, there's that.
I think you got one more, Carlos.
This is the big one.
Oh,
One
sorry.
minute,
Please have one more paper. I'm like, what paper?
Do you want- What's that?
Do you want me to leave the room?
You don't have to,
I don't
I
think
didn't know
it's
if you wanted to.
I'm good.
If it's, or if
All right.
you felt like you had to.
So, number 23, discussion and vote whether to approve the contract between the town of Freetown and Deborah L. Petty to extend her contract through 6/30/2023, pages 92 through 97. As we know, over the last a few sessions back, we decided to put this, the changing of the verbiage of what the administrative position was going to be named. It's on a town warrant, and it's gonna could take up to a year for the Attorney General to go ahead and come back and approve the changes.
Yep.
So Ms. Petty's contract expires 6/30/2022. So so we don't lose the knowledge, skills, and ability that's been attained for the past 7 to 8 months with Ms. Petty, and knowing that it may take up to a year, it doesn't seem fair to leave her there without any benefits or having, the benefits of being a town administrator or even a temporary one. So we submitted the former contract we had with her to the attorneys with a different verbiage to beef up that position, make sure that the town employees, get back to her on certain things and her reporting back to us. So I don't know if you had a chance to read it.
I did, yep,
Um,
yep, it looks good.
Any questions? It was approved by the attorneys, it was minor language changed. Everything looks good, and I think it's a good way forward for next year, covers us in so many ways.
Absolutely.
I will add that, I like the idea that this will hopefully get her where she needs to be for, not even talking pay, just making sure for, vacation, personal time, stuff that she deserves, because I don't know many people that work as hard as Debbie, so, I'm happy to have this in front of us, trust me.
Perfect, excellent. Well, in that case, I entertain a motion to vote on the contract to extend Ms. Deb Petty as the interim town manager, administrator through 6/30/2023.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, back to
Oh, wait.
me.
No, I think.
No, it's you. Who's,
Still-
are you?
still Carlos, yeah.
Carlos,
So
yeah,
good.
24.
24, there is a 24. Back at it, ladies and gentlemen.
Mhm.
Number 24, discussion and vote on days, times, the kiosk at Long Pond Road boat ramp will be collecting parking fees. All right, so this is definitely up for discussion. Originally, we decided to go with the kiosk. We were discussing going between, I believe, Memorial Day and Labor Day. And I believe it was Thursday or Friday through Sunday. Right, but now there's not a wrinkle, but now with the kiosk that's been delivered or is about to be delivered in the next week or so, and then installed from that point on, there's a a monthly fee that we also have to think about, right, which is I believe $24.99, and the company won't waive that fee on the off seasons. So the discussion really is, yes, do we enforce it with our, MOA with the police force and the details, but then keep it not enforcing it with the details, but enforcing the parking beyond just the Memorial through Labor Day. So, honor system in a sense, right? Where people going there and depositing their funds for the parking at the boat ramp outside of that scope of time, which is, again, up for discussion. Do we do Wednesday? Do we do every day? Do we just keep it open? That's what.
No, I think a resident brought up the idea of, them coming to the boat ramp on, Mondays and Tuesdays or whatever. So I like the idea of it being Friday, Saturdays. I think we said Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or just Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
What about, but also like holidays?
And the holidays, yeah.
Just because we're trying to get, the most amount of revenue when it should be busiest. I think that'd be holidays and weekends. Does that make sense? And then for times, I mean,
That could literally be year round. I don't know why we would have to do it.
one thing, I know people currently use the boat, the Long Pond for, is like if they go in the ocean on their boat, and then they go there just to put it in the water, use the boat ramp just to clean their boats. And that's bad for the environment, for the pond. And so I if they're gonna do that, I'd rather, cause they can do that anytime, I go fishing in the winter, right? So like, I don't know, if at least we'll get a little revenue from that.
It's a
activity,
small amount of
potentially.
money. You're talking $25 a month, like it's not a big deal, but, I don't know that we need to, I think cutting it off makes it more confusing too. So I almost feel like just saying, we're charging the fee Thursday through Sunday and holidays.
Is that right? Or to just
keep it open the year round.
Just keep it open and
we're not
it's
dealing with
every
that.
day you have to pay.
Right.
A resident who isn't here, so I don't wanna call out his name, brought up the fact that, he
Yeah,
likes to go to the boat ramp, and it's just a local guy and who wants to go to the boat ramp and doesn't feel like we should be collecting a fee from him, and I can actually appreciate that, right? So I think for those types of days during the week, there can't be a lot of people there, right? So it's not like it's gonna be a huge loss of revenue.
I'm just thinking about enforcement and keeping track of that.
Right.
Yeah, but the issue is the boat ramp has become a deficit, a cost to the town, right? The revenues don't cover the expenses, or at least not in the past year. And there are things that need to be done at that boat ramp. One of the things is we need to, contemplate putting an electric into that shed.
Right.
There's a boat washing station that we've contemplated that will avoid the contaminants going into Long Pond.
I like that.
So I think that you need to look at the bigger picture on some level and not just say, okay, we're not trying to make money on this, but we wanna try to protect the asset itself, and we need revenues to do that. So you may wanna just leave it, and listen, I think charging it and enforcing it will be two different things, right? We're not gonna send police officer details down there on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I would think, unless there's.
Unless
If something happens,
Yeah.
of an emergency
So
or.
it'll be on the honor system for the most part.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of people who will pay the $10, it's just because that's.
The right thing to do.
Yeah, I think, so
Hopefully
I just want you to think about that, because all the monies we collect, stay in that account for
Yeah,
the
it's
boat
all
ramp.
It's all right back to
improving
it.
the facilities and all that stuff.
My concern is we're not catching all the communities, right? So, fishing tournaments, I've done a few of those over the years, and you get there 4 or 5 in the morning, you launch, you probably have 100 boats, sometimes. So are we capturing those if we don't have it open the entire time versus just having it 8 in the morning till 8 at night, whatever the times are? So there's pros and cons, and also don't forget we also have this on the warrant, right? That's one of the residents put on there.
Change it if.
Right? We can say yes today, and the warrant comes back saying we want it for free, and that's the will of the people. So.
Well, that's different, right? Because it's not the beach.
Right.
That's not the
Alright, so what are we thinking here?
program. Actually, I'm okay with either direction, honestly. If we wanted to say 24/7 and 365 and it keeps it smooth, then.
it might be the easiest thing to do. And I mean, I shouldn't say this on the record, but there's no one's gonna be enforcing it in the winter. So just don't use it.
Right, it's, you know, we do have details for the busy season, right, which is Memorial Day through Labor Day, which, you know, we expect crowds and, you know, boaters. We're not trying to deter anybody to using the pond, at the same time, we do have to put back to the pond and to the, you know, whether it's cleaning station, everything else, and this is a good way to do it. And it keeps it simple for everybody involved.
So it's interesting that it doesn't go back into general funds. I like the fact that it stays in that fund.
Yes, it's its own.
That's right,
revolving
so,
fund, yeah.
so,
Is it painful at first? Yes, but long term, I think it's a solution to the problem.
Have you guys considered like a yearly, weekly, monthly pass that you could, you know, or even a daily pass, you know, for the pond? That you could, you know, either out-of-towners or even in-towners that could just purchase, like, again, I don't have a boat or anything, but I, you know, if I wanted to go on the pond for the day, you could just charge that short fee of maybe $5 or something.
Yeah, I think there's some issues with us, like, to use the boat, because it's like state-owned technically.
Yeah.
Like, we can only charge for parking,
Okay.
right? Is that, Chief, you might be more familiar with that. Like, I know there's some,
It's the use of the facility that you
Yeah.
capture the fee on. And the state only has 2 tiers, state residents and non-residents.
yeah,
So I guess you'd have to contact Office of Voting Access to see if they would allow the town to issue like an annual permit or something.
Did they say no?
yeah.
They might,
Did they say
I
no, or
don't
did
know.
they say yes?
I mean, it would break it up a little bit for people who would, you know, generally wanna spend all that money to.
Yeah,
Then how
I
do
get
you
it.
use
Yeah.
That did say yes.
No, when we looked at the kiosk that's going into place now, we looked at a lot of the different things that the state and town are allowed to, you know, interact with. And it was either the kiosk or one of those national park systems, drop money as you go, again, the honor system. And to us, it seemed as though the kiosk was more efficient in collecting the fees, and not to mention amount of people on the pond. There's only 55 parking spots, which means only 55 people are launching their boat. So like the chief said, it's parking at the facility, not launching the boat, right? So, but now it's 55 people in the parking lot, which means you have 55 boaters out there.
Yeah.
Whether that's a canoe, whether that's a motorboat, kayak, whatever it is, it's 55 people at a time.
And I
So,
understand
it's
the cost involved with like issuing stickers for such and such and such and such and such, but I was just, sorry.
No, it's trust me, we've had those discussions and we try to make it right down the middle so that it appeases everybody, whether in town or out of town. Of course, you'll never make everybody happy, so we try to make a middle of the road approach.
So I got a suggestion. So what if we just do vote for an hour, 24 hours, 365, and then, you know, if we have some good discussions, you know, we can post on another agenda item, and when we post that, if anyone has any strong, you know, I'm very willing to hear it.
Yeah.
I think this is just easy for now and gives us
Check
at
back
least
a couple months and
path
see how we're
forward.
doing, right?
Yeah.
And if we get complaints, we'll take those into consideration and adjust as needed.
Yeah.
Alright.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right, so it sounds like we're gonna, I entertain motion to go ahead and approve 24/7, right, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Yep.
Of the kiosk open, once it's in place and ready for use, until further discussion.
Yep, alright, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Alright. Debbie, now town administrator's report, we got agenda item 25.
Yep, so this is just like you did the last meeting, the One Stop for Growth grant application. This is just, you know, I'm applying for the sewer line extension engineering grant in the amount of $976,000.
Wow.
It's
And
just
that
a
combined
grant
with the
application.
other grant we talked about earlier.
Well, the match will be 200, so I'm actually looking for 776,000.
Gotcha.
So it's just, you know, getting the board's approval that they want me to apply for this grant and that it's okay for me to apply for this grant.
Love grant money.
Yes.
Alright, so I'll entertain a motion to approve, that would be for the application of the One Stop for Growth, grant for sewer extension engineering.
A motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alright, I think that's all we got. Am I good? Alright, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.